Hello, BookTube. It is Wednesday, and once upon a time, for a long time, that was New Comic Book Day at your LCS, your local comic shop, where fanboys would go and read all of the new comics, and maybe occasionally, once a year, buy a couple of them. and I used to make that pilgrimage myself, especially during years when Marvel and DC, the two main publishers of superhero comics, were doing great work, but even in trickles in more recent years, including on this channel. I've done Comic Book Wednesday on this channel many, many times. I can't do it anymore. Comic book shops have closed. They are non-essential. Comic book distributor, Diamond Distributor, has closed and is welching on a lot of its contracts, so who knows what that's going to mean down the line. And comic book publishers, those comic book publishers, Marvel and DC, have ordered a lot of their writers and artists to put their pencils down. Stop work on your current projects because our printing presses have stopped. They are silent. We are not currently in business while we figure out what to do, not only with the fact that we don't have physical shops and so we have no foot traffic, but also with the fact that we don't have a distributor anymore. so right now, as of late April 2020, it feels weird to say that, late April 2020, because it's freezing cold, but as of late April 2020, it looks to me like the old style comic book industry that gave rise to Comic Book Wednesday will never come back. That maybe it will limp back into view in some changed form, but it won't be the way it ever was, where a whole bunch of people went with no masks on, all gathered together on a comic book store on Wednesday to look at all the new releases and then buy them. I don't think that'll come back. But I wanted to keep talking about comics on Wednesday, and some of you have even said that you would like a lot more. You'd like an extra comic book day. I will try to do that as well. But for today, I'm going through my back issues. I have a large number of back issues. The fact that back issues are things that almost every comic book lover has at some point, somewhere in their house, is to me a prime indication of why digital comics might not take off. I think that's a large part of why comic readers love these things, is because of the physical objects. I could be wrong about that. The digital could take off if comic book fans are presented with the alternative of nothing. So you'll either read this month's X-Men titles digitally, or you won't. But you'll know they're out there. But there's not going to be a print version. I don't know. I think if comic book fans knew these things were being made, they would probably sign up for them. But nevertheless, I want to go through a stack. I'm just working my way through one of those cardboard long boxes that comic fans all have. And we'll start this first one. This first one is from, I think, the 1970s? 1982. This is from the 1980s, when everything in the world made sense. And this is Batman. Batman number 353. With a cover and interior art by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. He is just a fantastic artist. Just incredible. I want to give you a good... all right. Well, this is an inset, a separate adventure in which He-Man teams up with Superman. And I don't know anything about He-Man, never watched the show, so I don't know anything about it, but I did read this preview in the inset because it's Kurt Swan, the artist Kurt Swan, drawing Superman. I'd take that anytime at all. But this is Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, his incredible page design, his incredible artwork. He's just amazing. I wonder if I can find another example of the way he fills a page with incredible detail, incredible cleanness of line. This is just amazing. Of course, this is a Batman versus the Joker story from the old days when the Joker was not... there's another. Look at that. Incredible. Just amazing. This is when the Joker was not... he was still the clown prince of crime. He was not the kind of, I'm going to kill you, but first I'm going to use an ice cream scoop to scoop out your eyeballs and your mother's eyeballs, and I'm going to make you eat an ice cream cone made of your mother's eyeballs because it wasn't that kind of weird psycho. He was just the clown prince of crime, Batman's best enemy, but not something that leaves you soiled and gritty when you read or learn anything about him. The current Joker, isn't that? Then this next one, this has got to be from the 70s. Yes? No? Yes, 1972. This is awesome. It was written by Bob Haney, I believe, and this is drawn by Dick Dillon, who did work on the Justice League as well. This is World's Finest, which was a regular ongoing book where Batman teams up with Superman. And in this issue, we meet the Super Sons. Check out those bell bottoms, huh? These are two teenage boys who are the sons of Batman and Superman. This is a what-if story in which the two boys are friends, and they are rebellious 1960s style teenagers. They don't like how square their parents are. Look at this beautiful Nick Cardy cover, just fantastic. And so they decide to team up on their own as Batman Jr. and Superman Jr. And Batman Jr. is just a slimmer, more athletic version of a Batman. See, there you go. There he is, punching a villain. And Superman Jr. has a human mother, we are told. We never see their mothers. The mothers are always tastefully draped in shadow, so we don't know who they are. But Superman Jr. Has only half his father's powers. He's bruised by bullets. He can be harmed by explosions, but not killed by them. He can jump enormous distances. What is the amazing distance that we're given a specific 100 miles. He can jump 100 miles, but he can't fly. They're chips off the old block, and they are real good friends in this issue. And they decide to have an adventure together in this issue. And their fathers don't want them to. They don't want them. They think they're unprepared for their adventure. So Superman comes up with an idea that instead of sending them to a city where a crime lord is on his last legs and they just have to topple his crime empire, it'll be a fairly easy adventure, they won't get into any trouble. Superman decides that even that is too much of a risk, so he decides to create a duplicate version of that city using vibrational superpowers that's identical in every way, and then his sons can go there. That's the kind of thing that used to happen in comics like this back then, and used to be a very small matter. It was a tiny little thing for Superman to create a new city with millions of new inhabitants, new lives, new backstories. And then he accelerates the boys. The boys are on a motorcycle. Of course, they've gone onto the road to find themselves, Easy Rider style. He uses his superpowers to... concrete doesn't work that way. Pavement doesn't work that way. Asphalt doesn't work that way. That won't happen. But he uses that to accelerate them into a new vibrational frequency so that when they go to this city, they think nothing of it. They think that they are in the real city where they're encountering this crime lord. Now, of course, I know none of this could happen. This is a comic book, but that especially couldn't happen, that you just, off the top of your head, improvise to create a new city in a new vibrational pattern. But another thing that couldn't happen is much smaller. The boys are driving towards this new city. There's their 70s hairdos. And as they're driving towards that city, they change into their costumes on the motorcycle. That is not possible. Okay? That can't happen. Can you drive a motorcycle and change your pants at the same time? No, you can't do that. You cannot do that. But the thing that interests me the most about this issue was the relationship between the Super Sons. I don't know anything about Bob Haney. I know that he wrote some Batman stories that I really like, but I don't know anything about him otherwise. I have no idea what he might have been going for in this story. But at one point, we see Bruce Wayne Jr. at a nightclub with a beautiful woman who's trying to get his attention. Bruce lover, why so down? Come dance with me. And Bruce says, no chance, doll. I'm waiting for someone I need like bad. And she even says, hey, I thought I was your chick this week. And when they finally meet, they embrace each other, and Bruce Wayne Jr. says, Clark, kiddo, am I ever glad to see you, spiritual brother. And Clark Jr. says, hi, Bruce, I came as soon as I could. Guess we both had the same need. So there is, needless to say, a Super Sons story that is not being written that would have been very interesting to read in the 1970s. But this was fun anyway. And the Super Sons, this was their first appearance, and then fans wrote in and loved them, wanted more adventures of these two teenage chips off the old block. So they got more adventures. Okay, then this next one is, I think, from the 70s as well. Yeah, 1975. This was... wow. Okay, this is drawn by... this is the Inhumans, number 1. Cast of superpowered characters who are not mutants. They are genetically warped superpowered beings who appeared in the Fantastic Four. They are the main cadre. It's a whole city. Atalan is a whole city of superpowered beings. But the main cast of characters that you see on this cover here, Triton, Gorgon, Medusa, Black Bolt, Karnak, are a ruling family, a group of, it's a royal family that rule Attilan and have superpowers and have always been the team. When you're talking about the Inhumans, the term in Marvel Comics refers to a whole group, a whole demographic of people who live in a hidden city. But the term also the team refers to this royal family. Black Bolt is not only the leader of the team of the Inhumans, he's also the king of Attilan. And he's mute. If he speaks, the slightest whisper causes sonic disruptions that can level a whole city. And the Inhumans are fairly interesting. I don't think they've ever warranted a book of their own. Marvel has tried many times to give them a book of their own. I got this. Mainly, the thing that drew my attention on the newsstand was the Gil Kane cover. That is just a beautiful Gil Kane cover. And then when I opened it, I realized that it was drawn by somebody named George Perez. And I'd never heard of him before. He would go on to become an incredibly popular fan favorite artist. This is very early work of his for Marvel. I haven't ever checked. I haven't looked at his IMDb or his Wikipedia or anything, so I don't know. This could have been his first headlining piece that isn't a backup feature. He went on from here to do the Fantastic Four and the Avengers and a million other things. And it's a fairly busy first issue. I kind of liked it. I don't think, like I said, the Inhumans are backup characters for me. They're interesting in their own way. I mean, Black Bolt doesn't speak. He uses his consort and queen, Medusa, to interpret for him. All of the Inhumans, fans of the team will say, well, all of them went into, the Terrigen Mist is the device they use to take their citizens at a rite of passage. They go into this chamber, they're exposed to the Terrigen Mist, and that transforms them. So Triton wasn't born with green scales, being able to breathe underwater. Gorgon was not born with hooves instead of feet. The one detail that fans of the Inhumans tend to forget is that Karnak was never exposed to the Terrigen Mist. He has his powers naturally. He developed them naturally. They are not a mutation or any kind. But this is a fairly good issue. I think I bought a couple more of this Inhumans run, but George Perez I don't think stayed for very long. And once he left, I left, because I'm not interested enough in the characters. And that's another thing that we were talking about in these Wednesday comics. We're talking about runs on titles. If George Perez had stayed on the Inhumans for 30 issues and gotten better and better and better, that would be a great run. People would remember it that way. And people do remember that. Have we seen one already? No. Jose Luis Garcia Lopez was too slow an artist to really be on a run of anything. But occasionally it did happen that a writer and artist would team up and have a run on a title that would become legendary. And a lot of times the easiest way for that to happen is if the writer and artist were the same person. And these next two issues are a perfect example of that. This was when DC Comics had the right to all of Edgar Rice Burroughs. There was a run on Tarzan by Joe Kubert. These are, I think, two of the issues that I have. I'm pretty sure I have lots of others, including the first issue. Joe Kubert's Tarzan is legendary. He's a legendary interpreter of this character. Rightfully so. These are great, great issues that sometimes adapt Tarzan stories and sometimes don't. Sometimes are very free with them and sometimes aren't. But these are just amazingly good. Kubert does a definitive Tarzan. And there have been others. Oh, look at that. There have been other great Tarzans, of course, Russ Manning and a couple of other people, but I love Kubert's Tarzan, and this is two of those issues. I don't know how many more of them I have. We'll encounter them because we're going to go through all my back issues. Okay, all right. Talk about a run. This is, of course, a defining run. Stan Lee created Spider-Man with the artist Steve Ditko, who had a kind of herky-jerky style that he has a lot of fans. I think Steve Ditko is a great artist, for instance, for Doctor Strange. He has a lot of fans who love all of his work, no matter what. I've never thought he was the great Spider-Man artist. Instead, when he left, John Romita Sr. came on, and he and Stan Lee had a run on Spider-Man with Romita's artwork that was definitive, just amazing. And this is an issue from that run. This is The Amazing Spider-Man number 72, the introduction of the character called the Shocker, who is just an ordinary person with vibrational bracelets that can send out vibrations. In other words, he shouldn't have taken Spider-Man more than a minute to defeat, and yet they fight a couple of times in this issue, and it goes on and on, but oh Oh my, the John Romita Sr. artwork. I don't know that it's just amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. His version of this character became just definitive for a long time. I would argue that one of the best subsequent interpretations of this character, very different, was by his son, John Romita Jr. But there have been others, of course. A lot of you will know Todd McFarlane, but I love the John Romita Sr. run on Spider-Man. Just love it. All right, okay, we have another run here. This is another classic run. These are from the 1960s, I think. All of these are. Is that right? 1967, yeah. This is the great run. Stan Lee was writing Thor. Stan Lee was writing all of his staple characters for a long time. And once Jack Kirby came on board as the artist for Thor, and once he got Vince Colletta as his inker, all of a sudden, stories started getting more and more epic, and the whole Stan Lee, Jack Kirby run on Thor is unbelievably good. And here we have it, 149, 150, 151, and 152. In these issues, Thor has once again been stripped of his godly power by his father Odin, who loves to throw temper tantrums, loves to steal his godly power, which is why he can be trashed by a villain named the Wrecker. When that happens, it happens a few times in this run of Thor. When that happens, suddenly Thor doesn't have his mystical ability, so he tires, and he's vulnerable, and his hammer doesn't return to his hand. He still has his physical strength, his unbelievable physical strength, but not much more than that. He can't summon storms, for instance, which is why in these issues, the Wrecker is able to beat him almost to death. The Wrecker thinks he is dead, and so does Hela, the Queen of Death, the Goddess of Death in Stan Lee's version of these comics. The Wrecker can't feel a pulse. He assumes Thor is dead. And then Hela shows up and almost gets him. She almost summons his ghost, but he's not dead. He's not quite dead. He's able to fight back. A terrific run. Don't know if I have it in an anthology or hardcover. I'd like to think I do. Let's see here. Okay, all right. Then we're going to rocket forward in time here. This is the 80s, I believe. 1985. Yes, this is the Teen Titans, which started off its life in DC Comics as a team composed of the teenage sidekicks of established adult characters. So Robin, the Boy Wonder, Speedy, the arrow shooting teen sidekick of the Green Arrow, Aqualad, the sidekick of Aquaman, Wonder Girl. The team became very popular, and so the writers quickly abandoned that idea to add new characters. But the core characters of the Teen Titans that everybody loved most were always that core of teen sidekicks: Robin, Wonder Girl, Aqualad, Speedy, and Kid Flash, the teen sidekick of the Flash, that sort of thing. That core group of members for the original Teen Titans was so popular. And then the team went into abeyance, and then it was brought back with another great run that we'll get to. I'm sure we will get to it. Marv Wolfman, the writer Marv Wolfman, and the artist George Perez, who we saw in that Inhumans issue, but only much longer in his career, much better as an artist, really hitting his great heights. They relaunched the Teen Titans with a new team. There were some core members, Wonder Girl and Robin and whatnot, but there were new characters as well, and that took off again. Just took off again. That was so popular. And this was way down the line in that. This is the new Teen Titans. This is written by Marv Wolfman still, but it's drawn by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, who we've already seen, and who is just an amazing draftsman, just an incredible artist. There's a moment, a panel in here. Look at that. That is just amazing. That is not given to every artist to do. And here we have, this is an adventure where the Teen Titans fight the Titans of mythology and team up with them as well, and it's amazingly good. I have all of these issues. I tried never to miss anything that was drawn by Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, so I have these other issues somewhere. Okay, then we move forward. We move forward in time even further. This is. Do I have a date on this? This will be the aughts, I believe. 2000, the year 2000. This is written by people I'm not going to know, Joe Kelly, and drawn by Duncan Rollo. And it is an issue of Superman in Action Comics where he teams up with Captain Marvel, with the original Captain Marvel. And it was great, absolutely great, because Superman at one point has to inhabit Captain Marvel's body and thereby firsthand experience his powers, which look on the surface similar to Superman's, but they are drastically different. They are mystical in nature. And at one point he says that Superman, they're having a dialogue because they're the same body, so they can communicate with each other. And Superman asks, "Is this how it always feels? Your power? Is this how it always feels?" More or less. Well, more because of your contribution, but you don't sense that anymore, do you? And Superman says, "No, I can only feel power so much. I had no idea what you were capable of." And it turns out that in the course of this issue, Captain Marvel has to go to a mystic realm, and he has to deal with a mystic threat that Superman could not have done. Superman, in fact, says that explicitly. At one point he says, his sincerity is a living thing. They speak for an eternity until the alien being has been heard and appeased. Then the war is over. Diplomacy and reason succeed where force, where I, simply would have failed. I thought that was great. Terrific insight into Captain Marvel, who's often not given that insight, whether it happens to a Superman comic or not. Okay, then how are we doing for time? We're doing all right. We'll go a little further here. Then we move back to the 1970s. This is 1975. This is Superman Family. These giant-sized issues, these giant-sized 100-page issues that were $1. No, 50 cents. This was 50 cents. This was a lot of money back then. You would get a new story at the beginning, and then you'd get a bunch of reprints in the back. It was a wonderful thing. We've seen a few of them here. We saw Batman Family, and this is the Superman Family. And the main star of the story here is not Superman, it's Supergirl, in an issue where she fights Cleopatra, who has ensorcelled. Cleopatra has ensorcelled all of the superheroes. So Supergirl has to fight her all on her own because the men want to fight her instead of fighting Cleopatra. And it's really neat. It's all Kurt Swan artwork. I just love it. See there, Cleopatra is leading her ensorcelled heroes. Supergirl has been knocked unconscious. She's going to tell them to dump her in the river. And there is I noticed this at the time, even in the 1970s, Batgirl is not affected. And when Supergirl is thrown into the river, Batgirl saves her in a what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A 9-panel page that Kurt Swan draws without any dialogue at all. A rarity for comic books back in the 70s. A rarity. And kind of weird in an intimate kind of way. Batgirl dives into the river, saves her friend, tries mouth to mouth, realizes it's not working, and realizes she needs more air pressure for Supergirl's super lungs, and revives her by putting her mouth against the air spigot of a tire in a car. All of it done without any dialogue. Just, I don't know why that struck me, but it did. So, okay, then we have a Superman annual. This is going to be from the 1980s. Yes, 1984, when everything in the world made sense. This is DC Comics Presents, which was a team-up issue, a team-up book that Superman had. He would team up with a different character every month. And it did well. It was popular with fans, so it got an annual, a larger issue that used to come out, a much bigger storyline. And in this one, Superman teams up with Captain Marvel. And I admit, the only reason I got this, it's written by Roy Thomas, but the only reason I got it is because the cover and the interior artwork is by Gil Kane, one of the greatest artists. Just an amazing artist. I just love him. Just think he's fantastic. That's why I got this. That's why I kept it. Then we have an issue of Superman about Superdog. This will be from the aughts. Are you going to tell me, or are you going to hide your production material? You're going to hide it to the end because you want to make this seem like a movie. Is that what you're going to do? You're going to wait for the rolling credits at the end because that's how movies are. That's what movies are like. Or maybe you're not going to do it at all. Maybe you're not ever going to tell me what this is, when it came out. No, there is no publication date on this thing. I'll just have to guess. I'm not going to look it up. But this was written by James Robinson and drawn by Renato Guedes. And it's just an issue in which the supervillain, stalling action, the supervillain is dealt with by Krypto the Superdog just briefly until Superman can get a handle on things. I got it mainly for the Alex Ross cover, which is incredible. Okay, then we move back to the 60s. Is that where we're going? No, 1971. This is 1971. This was when Jerry Conway was starting to take on some of the writing chores for Stan Lee. And this is Daredevil, number 72. The reason I got this is because it has Gene Colan artwork on the inside. Gene Colan was the artist for Daredevil for a long time. I don't quite know why. He's not a character that fits with Gene Colan's real artistic sensibilities. The character here ends up, there's a wonderful payoff in this issue. It's a great standalone issue. The character Tagak the Leopard Lord has a reveal at the end of the issue that makes him simpatico with Daredevil. It was a really good issue. I enjoyed reading it. I've reread it over time. Okay, then we have a Wonder Woman issue with artwork by the great Jorge Jimenez. Is that right? Did you do that? No, you're not going to tell me. Okay, all right. Well, that's great. Okay, that's fine. So you're not going to tell me what the name of this issue is or anything? Or are you going to wait until the end because that's when the credits roll in a movie and you want to be a movie? Yes, you're going to save it to the end. The issue is called She's a Wonder. Yeah, the story is by Phil Jimenez and the artwork is by Phil Jimenez. I don't know where I got Jorge from, but this is Wonder Woman number 170, and it's got a great Adam Hughes cover. Look at that; that is just amazing. As you can tell from the cover, there's not much in the way of action. Instead, Lois Lane, as a reporter, spends the day interviewing Wonder Woman, and it's great, just fantastic as a portrait of Wonder Woman, a fictional that fleshes her out just amazingly, and it has some terrific Jimenez artwork. There's just no way around it. Just terrific Jimenez artwork. Phil Jimenez does a fantastic Wonder Woman. He's also fairly good at young men. Let's just put it that way. He's fairly good at drawing young men. This is just a great standalone issue. I don't have anything else in this run of Wonder Woman. I just have it because I love it when Marvel or DC, but especially DC, the home of all the real superheroes, I love it when they pause for a moment to reflect on what other people think of these characters. You saw the same thing in that issue with Superman and Captain Marvel. Same thing in this issue where Lois Lane talks out loud about what Wonder Woman is like, what people think of her. Okay, how are we doing for time? Oh no, we're running out of time. All right, well, we'll stop with these next two. I'll put the rest of these away and we'll go back to them on Friday. We'll stop with these next two. There was Marvel in the 70s, I think. Was it in the 70s? Yes. In the 70s, Marvel tried a comic called What If that I think came out every other month, where it was not an ongoing thing. There was no ongoing continuity. Instead, a new artist and a new writer would come on board every issue and tell a what-if story about what would have happened if something had gone different in the established Marvel continuity. And the first 10 issues of What If are amazingly good, just incredible. And there were a couple of standout issues even among them. And the issues were number 4 and number 5. And I kept them. I've kept them all this time. I'm sure these things have been collected. What If number 4, with a great Gil Kane cover, the premise was, what if the Invaders, the super team that Roy Thomas created of characters during World War II, what if they had stayed together after World War II? And there you have a great Gil Kane cover. Look at that. Just amazing. And the issue is written by Roy Thomas, is drawn by Frank Robbins, who was the great marquee artist for the Invaders comic itself. And it just follows the Invaders throughout their later history. And it's just an amazing thing to think about. It's a full-length issue that takes all the way to a much later era, with the Invaders still at work, as you can probably tell. We get to the era of the Kennedys. And the issue also deals with the fact that Captain America was thought to be dead at the end, before the end of World War II. He and Bucky were thought to be dead. Bucky was dead, but Captain America was in suspended animation. This issue deals with what Captain America kept publishing in comic books. He kept having adventures, so who was that? This issue deals with all that. It was just terrific. For a comic book fan, a diehard Marvel fan, it was just great. And then the issue number 5 was just as good. This was Don Glut wrote this, and it was drawn by George Tuska, who was an old style hack of an artist. Does fairly good work, but nothing like Frank Robbins or any other marquee. Gil Kane drew an issue. What If number 3 was drawn by Gil Kane, and it was amazingly good, just incredible. And there have been others. What If has had highlights all throughout. We saw an issue, I think. There was a What If issue, What If Conan the Barbarian lived in the world today? That was written by Roy Thomas and drawn by John Buscema and was great. Just a fantastic issue. I have it somewhere. But What If number 5 was what if Captain America hadn't vanished during World War II. So these are really bookends of each other. And this tells what if Captain America just kept going, getting older as time goes on all throughout, instead of vanishing at the end of World War II. Both of them terrific. Well worth rereading. So that was long. That is our comic book back issue tour for today. I'm going to do another comic book video on Saturday or on Friday. I figure if I announce these things, those of you who aren't interested in comics can just skip them. The one thing I've heard from those of you who aren't interested in comics and who email me. I leave my email on every video. Feel free to email me on anything under the sun. I am happy to hear from you. And one of the things that's come up on a few people who've written and said, well, I'm not interested in comics. No offense against you. I don't want to watch those videos because they end up being long. I don't want to watch them because I'm not interested in comics. But could you do us a favor? Those of us who aren't interested in comic books, could you make sure that Frida doesn't show up in your comic book videos? Because then we'd have to watch. And that is a perfectly good request. That is perfectly valid. So in this video and on the video on Friday, when I talk about comics, I will not put the bean in the video so that you're not missing her pretty face. I thought that was funny. I'm constantly getting comments from the Peanut Gallery, and I couldn't be happier about it. So that's your comic book tour for today. And on Friday, we will look at comics. Maybe I'll do the rest of these back issues just so we don't fall too far behind. And also, I'll give you a little update on the comic book world, maybe on Comicsgate, anything else that you might like. Feel free to sound off in the comments and let me know if it's comic book related. And so I'll wrap this up for now. It's been long, and I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.